These 4 simple tests could reveal early memory loss. Have you ever walked into a room and forgotten why? Or felt like a familiar word was just out of reach? We all have those moments. But if forgetfulness starts happening more often or feels a little different, it's worth paying attention. Today on Healthy Vibrance, we're sharing a few simple but powerful tests that doctors use to spot early memory problems, sometimes years before dementia becomes obvious. Let's start with one of the most fascinating. The first test is the clock drawing test. The clock drawing test may look simple, just pen and paper, but it's one of the most powerful early screening tools for cognitive decline. It's been used by neurologists, geriatricians, and psychologists since the early 1980s, when researchers began realizing that many cognitive changes associated with dementia could be picked up before they caused major disruptions in daily life. Unlike complex brain scans or memory quizzes that take time and resources, the clock test can be done in under 2 minutes, right in your doctor's office or even at the kitchen table. No machines, no cost, no stress. How it works. You're simply asked to draw a large circle, like the face of a clock. Fill in the numbers 1 through 12 in their proper positions. Then draw the hands to show a specific time, like 10 minutes past 11. Sounds easy, right? But underneath that simple task, your brain is doing a lot of heavy lifting. To complete this test, you have to access memory to recall what a clock looks like. Visualize spatial relationships so the numbers are placed evenly. Understand sequencing and numerical order. Interpret instructions and convert verbal time into visual placement. Use fine motor skills to actually draw what you imagined. It's a full-body workout for your mind. That's why it's considered one of the most sensitive tools for picking up early signs of mild cognitive impairment, a stage where memory loss is present but doesn't yet interfere significantly with daily life. What doctors look for. When a trained professional looks at your drawing, they're not just checking for neatness. They're asking, are the numbers spaced evenly? Are any numbers missing or duplicated? Are the hands pointing to the right time? Can we see the difference short hour hand versus long minute hand? Did you understand the task and stay focused through to completion? Subtle mistakes, like putting all the numbers on one side of the circle, misplacing the time, or drawing both hands the same length, can suggest changes in brain areas responsible for planning, attention, and spatial reasoning. In fact, research shows that people with Alzheimer's disease often have distinctive errors in this test long before they lose the ability to hold a conversation or remember loved ones. Here's what's important to understand. This test doesn't give you a diagnosis. It simply acts like a check engine light, an early signal that something might be changing under the hood. Now, let's talk about the second test, the 3-word recall test. And honestly, it doesn't get much simpler than this. Your doctor gives you 3 unrelated words. Let's say apple, penny, table. You repeat them back, no problem. Then they move on. Maybe they ask you to count backward or spell a word or draw a clock. Just a little distraction. And after a minute or two, they come back and ask, "Okay, what were those 3 words again?" Now, it might seem like a memory game, but it's actually a powerful little test that can help detect early trouble with short-term memory, especially the kind linked to mild cognitive impairment or even early Alzheimer's disease. So what's really going on here? This test is checking how well your brain can hold on to new information for a short period of time. In a healthy brain, different regions, especially the hippocampus and frontal lobes, work together to do three key things. First, register what you just heard. Then, store it temporarily. And finally, pull it back up when needed. Most of the time, this process runs in the background. You don't even notice it. But when it starts to slip, things can get harder. People may repeat themselves, forget conversations, or, as in this test, have trouble remembering even 3 simple words after just a minute. Now, you might be wondering, why those 3 words? Why apple, penny, table? Well, there's a reason they're so random. If the words were dog, leash, walk, your brain would naturally link them together, like a little story. But apple, penny, table? That's trickier. It forces your brain to work harder, and that makes it a better test. So what do the results mean? If you recall all 3 words after the delay, that's considered normal. If you remember 1 or 2, it might be something to watch, especially if it happens again. And if you can't recall any of them or don't recognize the words even when prompted, that could be a red flag. But here's the important part. This test isn't a diagnosis. Just like with the clock drawing, not doing well doesn't automatically mean you have dementia. It could be caused by stress, fatigue, hearing problems, or even just being distracted. But it is a signal, a nudge to maybe look a little deeper. Doctors often use this test as part of a bigger picture. It's included in the mini-cog, which we talked about earlier. It also shows up in more detailed evaluations, like the MMSE or the MOCA, which test multiple aspects of brain function over a longer session. The reason doctors like the 3-word recall is simple. It's quick, non-invasive, and very telling, especially when done regularly over time. Here's why that matters. Short-term memory is kind of like a mental post-it note. It holds on to things for just a little while, so you can use them when you need to. But when that note starts slipping off the fridge, so to speak, it might be one of the earliest signs that something's changing in the brain. That's why we always say, don't ignore it. If you or someone you love start struggling with this test, not once, but repeatedly, take it seriously. Now, if a quick memory test raises some questions, or if you and your doctor just want a deeper look at how your brain's doing, they might suggest something called the MOCA, short for the Montreal Cognitive Assessment. This one takes a little more time, around 10 to 15 minutes, but it gives a much more detailed picture of your cognitive health. And don't worry, there's no equipment, no scans, and no pressure. Just simple, thoughtful exercises with pen and paper. The MOCA looks at several key areas of brain function. You might be asked to name a few animals, copy some shapes, or repeat a short list of words or numbers. One part has you connect dots in a certain pattern, like 1 to A, 2 to B, 3 to C, which checks how well your brain can stay focused and switch gears. What makes the MOCA so valuable is that it doesn't just look at memory. It also tests your attention, language, reasoning, visual spatial skills, and more. In other words, it gives doctors a well-rounded view of how your brain is working today. It's often used to spot mild cognitive impairment, which is that in-between stage where something feels a little off, but you're still managing everyday life. And it's also helpful for catching early Alzheimer's signs, tracking changes over time, or setting a baseline for future checkups. And here's the best part. The earlier something is detected, the more options you have. From brain-healthy lifestyle changes to nutrition, medications, or even treating issues like stress or sleep, there's a lot that can be done. That's why the MOCA is trusted all around the world. Because when it comes to brain health, a little insight now can mean a lot more clarity later. The fourth test is simple orientation questions. These might catch you off guard. During a doctor's visit, you might be asked a few questions that sound, well, pretty basic. Things like, what year is it? What season are we in? Where are you right now? At first, you might think, why are they asking me that? But these questions are actually part of a quick check on your mental orientation, your ability to stay grounded in time, place, and context. It's a subtle way for doctors to spot early signs of confusion or disorientation, which are often some of the first clues of cognitive decline. Think of it this way. Our brains naturally organize the world around us. What day it is, where we are, who we're with. But when parts of the brain responsible for memory and awareness begin to struggle, these simple things can start to feel fuzzy. Someone might think it's spring when it's fall, or they might name a year that's off by more than a few. Or, in more advanced cases, they might look around and not know where they are, even in a familiar place. These orientation questions are often used as part of broader screening tools like the Mini Mental State Exam or the MOCA, but doctors also ask them casually, during conversation, to get a better feel for how well someone is processing their surroundings. They're quick, they're gentle, but they can be incredibly telling. And again, not remembering right away isn't always a red flag. It could be stress, fatigue, or even hearing trouble. But when someone struggles to answer these consistently, or forgets altogether, it may be time for a closer look. Early memory loss isn't always obvious. It can show up as small changes, like repeating yourself, getting lost in a familiar place, or struggling to follow conversations. These tests give us a first window into how the brain is functioning. They don't provide a diagnosis, but they open the door to prevention, support, and care that can make all the difference. Because here's the good news. When cognitive changes are caught early, you still have time to act. Through physical movement, brain-stimulating activities, nutrition, social engagement, even treating things like hearing loss, you can slow progression and protect your independence. So don't wait for something to feel serious. Try the tests. Share them with a loved one. And if anything feels off, talk to your doctor. It only takes a few minutes. But it could help you stay sharper, longer. This is Healthy Vibrance, where we believe growing older doesn't mean growing dim. It means learning, preparing, and taking care of the amazing brain that's gotten you this far. If you found this helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. It helps us reach more people who want to stay sharp, strong, and vibrant as they age. And it means you'll never miss a tip from Healthy Vibrance. Thanks for being here with us.